Do you love spy books, movies, and TV? Then the Spybrary podcast is for you. Since 2017, host Shane Whaley and Spybrary field agents around the world dispatch reviews and interviews with authors, historians, and fellow spy fans. We discuss everything from John le Carré, Len Deighton, Paul Viddich, Graham Greene, Mick Herron, Charles Cumming, Ben McIntyre, and many more. Spybrary is available on all good podcast apps and at spybrary.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the James Bond Book Club presented by Spybrary. Today we transport you back to 1959, the year that Ian Fleming's latest novel, Goldfinger, is released. In this episode, we'll be discussing this thrilling tale of espionage and intrigue, featuring almost everyone's favourite British secret agent, James Bond 007. Joining us on the book club once again, we welcome David Craggs and author Andy Onyx, who will provide their insight and analysis into this latest addition to the Bond canon. So sit back, pour yourself a drink, and join us as we delve into the world of Goldfinger. So Ian is back. He's done it again. Here's his seventh installment. Talk us through the opening. How was the opening of this book for you, David? Bond sat at Miami Airport, pondering life and death. How was it for you?
No, I thought it was a great opening, actually. It was really a melancholy start in a certain way. He's reflecting on life in general. He's also looking at his own worth within the context of this difficult and dangerous job that he does. And I think Ian got him off to a real flying start. The description in terms of the fight with the Mexican assassin was extremely well done, as per ever with the Fleming, as we've come to learn. And no, I thought the start was really quite robust. He grabbed me from the get-go. And one thing I would mention, actually, which came before the start, was the cover, because I'm completely delighted that he's gone back to working with Rich Chopping, because we had him with From Russia with Love. We were all excited about that. We thought that it really lifted the whole thing at Cape into a sort of luxury brand, if you like. Then he reverted back to his old setup with Dr. No. But now I understand from the people at Cape that Chopping is going to be a permanent feature, and that Ian's done a deal with them where he bridges the gap in the amount that they're prepared to budget for the cover and what Chopping actually costs. So that's a good thing. But going back to the start of the book, yeah, I thought he came out of the gate very, very strong. And he put a lot of flesh on the bones as far as Bond's concerned.
It's interesting. I think Fleming's really finding his stride and he's got that confidence. If you look at this first paragraph, right? James Bond, with 2 double bourbons inside him, sat in the final departure lounge of Miami Airport and thought about life and death. It was part of his profession to kill people. He had never liked doing it. And when he had to kill, he did it as well as he knew how and forgot about it. As a secret agent who held the rare 007 prefix, the license to kill in the Secret Service, it was his duty to be as cool about death as a surgeon. If it happened, it happened. Regret was unprofessional. Worse, it was Death Watch Beetle in the soul. Andy, how was that for you?
It was fantastic. And what I liked about it was the way that Ian has, if you're one of those few people that hasn't picked one of these up before, you've got spelt out over probably 2 or 3 pages exactly what this man Bond is all about. Yeah, he's killed a guy in self-defense with his bare hands, and we've seen a little bit of the inner life, a little bit of the conflict. He's trying to wrestle himself back from becoming too reflective. Even though he's considered this guy was an assassin, he's been sent to kill him, and he's just reacted in self-defense. And we as an ongoing theme, particularly in this one, as we'll probably find out, David, is that he's getting keener and keener on this Bourbon, isn't he? And yet, yeah, yeah, he's actually said to himself, because the flight has been delayed, and we've all been there, haven't we? That he's going to get absolutely smashed tonight. He said, I haven't been drunk for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get absolutely bombed.
Yes. Yeah.
And then this fella spots him. And then I don't know, do you want to take it up from there, David? This fella spots him.
Dupont. Yeah. Dupont.
We don't know whether he's going to snap this fella's neck, do we? At first.
Well, it's interesting because I thought I recognized the name when he first appeared. And of course, as it later transpires, he actually has met Bond before in Casino Royale at the tables there. But certainly, the first. I mean, Bond just can't place him, to begin with. There's a familiarity with him. Basically, he's picked up at the airport by an American millionaire, which is, I guess, what happens if you're a sort of British secret agent abroad and you're fancying a big night out. So, off they go.
It's interesting you say that, because the book is split into three: happenstance, coincidence, and enemy action. And this does seem a bit of a coincidence. He sat there, his flight's delayed, he's thinking about getting mullered, and Dupont, Mr. Dupont, who's a throwback to Casino Royale, rocks up. And he was one of the people who was at the table when he was battling Le Chiffre. So that's interesting how you can read this standalone, of course. But it's interesting that there's a couple of actual things in this book where he refers back to past adventures. And I think that's Fleming having fun. They then, it's interesting as well for me, this book, that Fleming again talks us through games that we might not be familiar with. I've never played, I can hardly say canasta, let alone play the thing, which is the first game that has an important role. And then obviously we come later on to Goldfinger, the villain.
I thought it was something
golf
that you
with Bond
when you were doing flamenco, actually.
I thought it was a drink.
Yeah.
2 canastas, please, large ones, no ice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Was the bit that stuck out to me when they're having the conversation, this tentative conversation at first, where he actually the Welsh get introduced. I mean, as a stateside Welshman, Jane, how many Americans have used the term boyo? He says
Not
boyo
many.
to Bond.
Not many.
He? I mean,
yeah. That did seem a little out of place. But let's getting back to the plot. So he's getting ripped off by some chap at his hotel, and he basically wants Bond to come in and, serve some justice on. So we have this scene again where Bond is up for the challenge, and he's going to try and rumble this character who's ripping off Dupont. And it's just fascinating again that Ian is using gambling as a mechanism to draw some of the characters out and definitely to set this one up.
Yeah. Well, the point's made that sort of Bond is fascinated by cards, and this guy promises him a very lavish dinner, and then he sort of hits him with the project. As you say, he's losing very badly to this partner at Canesta, and he's wanting. He has very fond memories of Bond's performance at Royal Les Heures, and he wants Bond to help him to see if he can't discover why he's losing. He's not concerned about the money. He just can't understand where a game that has such narrow odds he's losing so badly. And I think one of the great things that Ian is doing very well throughout all of this is he's introducing us to a range of different pursuits. I mean, we'll get on to golf later because that takes a big role in this. And whether you know the games or not, he has a real art of being able to explain things. And I find that, quite fascinating. There's a lot of detail as well, which we're now getting really quite used to. I mean, the way he describes Dupont with his Brooks Brothers outfit and so on and so forth is it really adds texture to the thing. And we're straight in there with him. And the rest, as they say, is further dynamism. I mean, for you, Shane, what happens? What's the big moment for you in the sort of relationship with Dupont? Is it when he agrees to undertake the mission, or when he comes up with the result, or what?
I think for me, what's fascinating with this, and again, it goes back to like Fleming is obviously a lot more confident with his writing and his storytelling because it's quite a mundane opener for, when you consider Dr. No and the escapades of Bond on the island, and then you've got him basically trying to, bust this cheat. I thought that was interesting. But for me, I'm not sure, honestly, this book, I'm not sure well, I can be honest, it didn't work for me as well as the others. And this almost felt more like a Simon Templar book, Simon Templar is minding his own business, an opportunity comes up to catch a cheat. It doesn't really seem the business of Britain's top secret agent to be rumbling some cheat at a hotel in Miami. But of course, it leads us into the opening because that's where Bond meets the femme fatale here. That is a spark for a lot of this plot. So I guess in its way, it was a more gentler introduction to a plot than we've seen before. Would you agree with that, Andy?
Yes and no, because as I say at the beginning, we're given that smash of violence, but albeit, like you say, it's not the same as the station being burnt down in Jamaica. But we are faced with what this guy is capable of. But once this, as we say, he's being tapped up by Dupont, and then it's the way to Bond's heart is through various points on his body, and one of them is his stomach. So he treats I think he says it's the best meal he's ever had of these crabs. This
crabs.
But also the point is this Dupont is a very, very wealthy man, and like you said, Shane, he's not so much bothered about that he's losing this money because he can afford to, and he's got the place he takes Bond to. I think he's got a stake in it or something like that, and all that, and then
on this suite,
this lovely hotel. And was it reminiscent for you a little bit where Bond's got his plan and then he finally sneaks in and he sees the young lady there, Jill Masterson, a bit reminiscent again of Miss Case. Again, we're coming back to the black lingerie and Bond walking in on a semi-naked woman, But I really enjoyed the way that he dealt with Jill Masterson, and in a very gentle way, and in a very not a creepy way even. He even says to her, doesn't he? Oh, you've got to do your other hand, because she's putting her nail varnish on.
Yeah.
While she's watching through the binoculars, isn't she?
Yeah.
The hand of Dupont over his shoulder and reporting it via the radio to our man.
Yeah.
And like I said, he said, I shouldn't worry, love. You've got that other. You've got to put get on with your other hand. Your other nails. That whole exchange with Jill Masterson at the beginning, I thought was really classy. What could have been really smutty was actually very, very classily done, and I thought it showed another side to Bond's character. I think in a very simple and straightforward way. And later on, the way he deals with he shops our baddie, and he even cuts in Jill Masterson with the finances as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You know, with the spoils.
She gets 10 grand out of it.
Yeah.
She gets 10
Yeah.
grand.
I thought that was marvelous. You know,
Can't believe he didn't give that to the White Cross.
Yeah, well, I guess it.
M was not a happy bunny with him.
Absolutely
No.
not. But I think all of this, of course, is just a mechanic for introducing the villain of the piece, our good friend Auric Goldfinger. But I think it was really, I thought the mechanic of the card game, the fact that Bond saw that there was a communication going on. I thought it was clever. You know, it was a clever introduction.
It was.
I have, you know, and I thoroughly, as things are going on, actually, what I would say up front is, as a general point, I mean, I'm enjoying these books enormously, but with the possible exception of From Russia with Love, of the 6 that we've read thus far, I would say I'm enjoying the first half of the books more than I'm enjoying the second half of the books, you know? But that's not to say that I don't enjoy the whole thing, but it's just a point. But it's certainly true of this one. I enjoyed a lot, you know, the setup and the briefing by M and so on and so forth. But as we discover, this guy has a lot of strings to his bow. I think where the coincidence gets a little stretched here in terms of the opener is that it just so happens that this character is, you know, another paymaster for Smersh, and there's been this report of the movement in the price of gold, and you know, the Treasury thinks there's more to it than this, and they bring in the Secret Service, M's involved, and so on and so forth, and the finger of suspicion falls on Goldfinger. But I thought that was a little bit of a stretch, you know. But he keeps you moving at such a pace. You only realise these things when you sit back and reflect afterwards, you know.
I kept picturing, when we were talking about Goldfinger, I kept picturing Drax, because they were both redheads.
Yes.
They're both cheap at games. And I'm like, is this another, you know, is this a Drax composite?
Yes.
They sounded very similar.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of redheads appear. Yeah.
In the Ginger
And
Club,
then Rosa Klebb was a redhead too, wasn't she, Andy?
and Grant.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it's interesting to me that here we have another villain who's super rich that gets a kick out of cheating. You know, it's not about the money. It's just about getting one over on someone, even on that one-to-one level. That's without the big grand plan that we'll get onto later on. That it's, you know, another kind of common thread with some of Fleming's villains.
But did you spot the and we just stepping back a little bit now to the setup that Ian is aligning the kind of love of gold or wealth, or the addiction to gold and wealth, to drug addiction. He mentions that there's been this setup in Soho with a fella called Blackwell.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're linked back in. It's probably taking a pop at Blanche's husband, I think, with that.
Oh, it's actually, it's one of her cousins. It's one of her cousins by marriage. Yeah. But it's certainly a relative of Blanche's. Yeah.
That's it. So with Goldfinger's wealth, it's not just his enjoyment of it on a personal level. It's his ability to corrupt. You know, even seemingly with benevolence in terms of sponsorship, everything is transactional, and that seems to roll out with the plot. It's not just about this guy enjoying the material trappings. It's his obsession that he's got something that everybody needs, that's a solid guilt beyond currency, and you know, he is seeking to control. But I thought the thing with Smersh, David, was it seems to be very theoretical. We're seeing Bond working this out in his head, but it seems theoretical. It's only later on, very later on, that we see that maybe it's not a theory. It's just Bond's suspicion, isn't it?
Yeah, it was all. It was all a little vague, the connection with Spurs until, as you say, later on. But I think what we're seeing in the development of this series is that Ian clearly has a fascination with power. You know, and all his villains, with the possible exception of those that we encountered in From Russia with Love, are, you know, demented, powerful people, you know, that aren't necessarily in it for the money, you know, they're in it for the power, if you like. And that certainly seems to be the case with Friend Goldfinger, albeit...
It's his strange appearance as well. I mean, like I say, he's in the Red Hair Club, isn't he? But he's 5 foot tall. I mean, he only mentions his height once in this book, doesn't he? But he also says that Bond's, you know, along with Bond's little pet dislikes, he's not keen on vertically challenged.
No,
he says he always mistrusted short men. He says Bond always mistrusted short men.
No place for me in a Bond book then. But I think wasn't Le Chiffre a little bit challenged, vertically challenged as well? I think he was. Yeah, it's true. And then of course on the appearance front, when we actually maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but when we actually get to meet Goldfinger's henchman, you know, he's not kind to our Korean brethren.
No,
but anyway,
we'll get to that in a moment. I think what's interesting is, you know, when Bond gets back to London, so having this luxury and opulence, he's had this train ride, he gives the 10 grand to Jill Masterson, he gets back, and M puts him on the night shift, you know, and again, things you don't really picture 007 doing. And then there's an interaction with M in this, and M seems to be in a foul mood. I mean, they have this almost father-son relationship, but it's the exchanges aren't great. And even when he tells him the story about the girl, and he's like, well, where's the 10 grand go? And he goes, well, I gave it to the girl. And he's like, you could have given that to the Wives and Orphans, the White Cross Fund.
Yes.
He's given him grief. It's clear that M really doesn't like his carousing.
No, he's not a fan of Bond's womanizing, that's for sure. Yeah. Maybe he's just jealous.
Of a different generation, right? I think it is. And also, there's risks implied with that. You let your guard down. I mean, how many times has Bond got himself in hot water because of a woman, right? So it's
true. That's true. That is true.
So then we get this chase, don't we? It was going to be fun playing Hare and Hounds across Europe, where we actually see a bit of tech. We get a gadget here, this homing beacon device that sounds very high tech.
Before that, of course, we have the big golf game.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
That's not to be missed out of this, because
a bit too long for me though, David. That golf scene, I have to say, like I handled the bridge and the canister, but
well, I think it's Ian playing around with all of the things that he loves. I mean, he creates this golf club in Kent. What does he call it? The club? He calls it the Royal St. Mark's at Sandwich. Yeah. Whereas his own golf club has a very similar name, I think. Yeah. So you know he's mixing. He's writing about what he knows basically, but of course Bond is mysteriously dispatched to reacquaint himself with Goldfinger at this game.
So is that coincidence now? Is that like the second part? So we've had Hapstance, and now suddenly he's turned up.
He he just happens to be in the golf club at that day, and he's looking for a
Right.
partner, and they encounter each other, and we have what I thought was rather a tense golf game, where Goldfinger established himself as a complete out-and-out bounder and cheat, and Bond manages to outmaneuver him by switching his ball. Yeah.
But I wonder if he had. I mean, they made no mention of Goldfinger having any specially designed golf clubs, did they? Because the man's 5 foot tall, so these clubs are going to come up to his shoulder, aren't they?
Well, I think when you have his money, Andy, they're bespoke. They're bespoke golf.
Everything's bespoke. Yeah, you got it.
I don't think he picks them up at the sports shop.
What did you learn about Goldfinger from this golf scene?
He's not as agoraphobic because he told everybody he wasn't.
He's what? Sorry,
card game.
That's true. This is true. That's gone out the window. He's not agoraphobic. I think we just have the endorsement really that the guy is an out and out cheat. And of course, it allows Bond to start probing him over the issue of gold smuggling, I think that was all we really got was another way of meeting Goldfinger and another way of progressing the plot. But I thought it was good in that regard. I enjoyed it.
And the stakes were high as well, weren't they? Because it was if Bond does come unstuck in this game, a little bit like with Casino Royale, he's not going to be able to settle.
No, he's not. He's going to have to go cap in hand to the Treasury, and probably lose his job en route.
So what do you think to the new car then?
The DB3.
My goodness me.
Excellent. I thought that was a really good introduction. Yeah.
Here come the 1960s.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was. I thought,
you must have driven one of those, David, haven't you?
No.
Never driven one? Okay, because there's certainly no way I'm still using the bus half the time.
No, I'm still sort of driving an Austin Cambridge. I haven't got to the Aston Martins yet. But no, it was and I thought the chase, because as we know, what happens after that is that Bond is given his new car, which has this tracker gadget installed, which I think is very futuristic. But maybe one day, it may seem a little fanciful, but maybe one day they'll have tracker devices like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, telephones are getting more complicated all the time, so maybe they'll have these sort of devices in the future. And off he goes, chasing Goldfinger across Europe. And I must admit, I enjoyed the chase across Europe a lot. I mean, obviously, it's a journey that Fleming's made himself on multiple occasions, but it's really it's really beautifully written, and it just takes you into another world. It's fantastic.
He keeps worrying about having to stop for a good old meal, though, doesn't he?
Well,
he wants his dinner break sorted out.
Yeah, he does seem to have a fascination as to where the next meal and the next drink's going from. But good for him. And then we have Tilly turning up.
Yeah. Yeah, because she's in she's a sports car too, isn't she? I think she's in an MG, isn't she?
Triumph, isn't it? Isn't it a Triumph?
Is it a Triumph? All right, yeah.
She turns up in her little Triumph, and we have Bond impressed with her driving and her looks and all the rest of it, and going after her. But she's spoiling his chase, so he has to take her out of the game, and he does that by reversing into her, which I thought was a ungentlemanly and a little blunt. Not the sort of thing that you'd expect from a secret agent. Surely he knows to look behind him before he reverses. But
well, he's this new Aston Martin. It's got what are the? I mean, we've said about the tracker, but it's got specially reinforced bumpers, hasn't it? I guess with that in mind, that he might have to do a bit of ramming here and there. Well,
yes,
just speak, so
to speak, yeah.
Yeah,
and I mean, who knows what's going to happen down the line with I think this car's destined to become quite famous. You can imagine somebody developing a model of it, to sell to fans and things like that. But we'll see. But yeah, it was a great chase across Europe, which of course brings us to Mr. Auric Goldfinger's factory. Yeah? Although we have missed out, because we'll be challenged about this. We have missed out the introduction to Oddjob at Goldfinger's house.
Yeah.
Before they go off on this chase, and that in itself was quite an event, particularly with the poor cat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's his reward. You can eat the cat.
Oh yes.
Have your cat for dinner.
Yeah.
Was that before or after he started smashing the house up for a demonstration for Bond?
Yes, yeah, that was
quite smashing the living room up, didn't he, with his bare hands and feet?
Yeah. Obviously, no expense spared.
We also find out that, according to Ian, that Bond is actually writing a book, isn't he? He's letting his creative juices flow in a book compiled about unarmed combat systems of the world. So he's Bond's quite taken to see this demonstration of Oddjob, isn't he? And he puts his hand through the mantelpiece and all that sort of stuff, but I don't think it'll catch on. Do you think the Marquis of Queensberry's in danger, David? All this Cara Tay stuff.
Well,
I mean,
it seems a little fanciful to me. But,
yeah.
But who knows?
But there was only 3 black belts in the world, right?
Yeah. And this stuff, you got to take your shoes and socks off first,
Yeah.
So
put your pajamas on.
Exactly. It's never going to catch on, is it, that lark?
Nah, I don't think so. But it's very clear from this book that our hero, Mr. Bond, is none too keen on the Koreans, is he?
No.
He's some choice things to say.
He says they're just above apes, doesn't he?
Yeah.
African Caribbean friends don't feature much in this one, but he's laid it on the Koreans, hasn't he? Big time.
The Koreans certainly seem to get it with both barrels, yeah. But let's just hope that they're Northern Koreans, yeah.
I was just going to say, is in Bond's backstory, did he do anything in the Korean War back in '53?
Not
or not?
Do I recall? No, not that I can recall.
Right.
Has there been reference to his war thus far?
It's just mainly
maybe in Casino Royale. There might have been some reference. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But his
I don't recall.
Yeah. I think
what we really need, David, is someone in the future to actually go through these 7 books and actually write a biography of James Bond, because there's just so much in his life that, you're trying to put this together, and we've been reading these books and we're struggling to remember, was he in Korea or not? Because that was my first reaction. I thought, is he anti-Korean because of an experience he had in the Korean War?
Because Goldfinger, it's not just, he's his bodyguard and, is basically death on legs, isn't he? Oddjob. But he seems to have all his help is Korean as well, isn't it? Throughout this book,
yes.
I think it's like Dr. No had got the Chinese Jamaicans.
Yes,
he's got like a group of Koreans, isn't he?
Yeah.
Throughout.
Yeah.
Are you on the hunt for your next thrilling spy read? Look no further. Spybury contributor and Sunday Times chief political commentator Tim Shipman has curated a list of his top 125 spy authors ranked. With Tim's vast experience and expertise in politics and spy thrillers, you can trust his judgment on the best spy authors of all time. This list includes both classic and modern writers, making it the ultimate guide for any spy fan. But wait, there's more. Tim also recommends which book to try first from each author, and he shares his favourite book from each of them too, so you can dive right into the best of the best. Ready to get your hands on Tim's list? Head over to spybury.com/top125 to grab your free copy now. Don't miss out on the ultimate spy reading list. Visit spybury.com/top125 today.
And that's part of my issue with this book is I don't think the character development was as strong. It was kind of like, oh, here's this new person, crack on with it. And I think in the past, Fleming has given them a backstory. And, we don't get that here. Like, why does Goldfinger have Korean servants and staff? That's not really explained.
Yeah. Other than the fact that he sees them as a good security measure. No, it's not explained. No, it's not explained. But I think what we're seeing emerging here, and I was going to make comment on it later, but maybe now's a good time. It seems to me that there are, on the 6 that we've read so far, they really divide up into sort of 3 and 3. Because with Casino Royale, Live and Let Die, Moonraker, and From Russia with Love. Well, that's 4. That's not 3. So it's 4 and 2. Those 4 were really, quite what I would describe as noir thrillers. They were really quite grounded. Yes, there were fanciful elements to them, but they were really quite grounded. And then I think that with Diamonds Are Forever, and with this one now, and with Dr. No, actually, we're sort of seeing we're seeing a different evolution. They're evolving more into what I would describe as fantasy thrillers. Where you have villains that are slightly more cartoonesque and henchmen that are more cartoonesque. It's not to say that it's bad, because it's not. It's extremely well written, and I'd be right now. I'd rather be reading this than any of his contemporaries. But I'm seeing the thing. I don't know whether you're with me on this, but I'm seeing the thing sort of part a little bit into different. We're seeing different types of Bond in a certain way.
Well, you use the word thriller, and up to this point in the book, for sure, I wasn't very thrilled.
Yeah.
I mean, the writing is great, the descriptions are fine, but I wasn't. It wasn't a page turner at this stage for me. I wasn't bought into like what's Goldfinger up to, where's this going. It seemed different from his other books. It just lacked that suspense early doors for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, when we get into Enemy Action, whereby you might have to remind me at what point does he actually recruit Bond?
So it's coming up now. So they go to Goldfinger's house, and he bumps into Tilly. We later found out to be Tilly Masterson. That's Jill's sister. And here it starts to get a little bit like we find out that Goldfinger killed Jill Masterson, who appears at the beginning of the book, and actually in a very evil way by painting her whole body in gold paint, so her body can't, she can't breathe and is suffocated. So now we're at that point. It's like, oh, okay, this is a bad guy. He needs taking out, etc. It was at this point I started to get more interested in the story. And then, we have this scene where, I think it's quite iconic in this book, or will become iconic, where, he's about to take Bond and her out. And how did you feel this worked for you both? So is the scene with the cutter coming up towards him, you think it's curtains, and then next thing, Bond wakes up in a hospital, in a room somewhere where he's been heavily sedated, and he has let them both off because Bond has said, "We'll work for you." And at the last moment, our villain is like, "Oh yeah, I need 2 English-speaking people to help me with Operation Grand Slam," that we'll get on to in a moment. How did that scene work for you, Andy?
It was certainly strange where he just comes round. Whereas before he's basically trying to suffocate himself, isn't he? Strapped to this table with the circular saw blade going up between his legs. It's gonna be nasty. It's gonna be a pretty pain. At what point he would actually expire, he doesn't know. And then, as I say, he wakes. So yeah, it was a little bit kind of really a little bit jarring, that. But I think that this is where, I know there are 3 parts to the book, but this is where maybe it does get a little bit bizarre, because both Tilly and Bond are then employed as his PAs.
Yeah.
Without a blink. He's got Bond typing stuff up. He's got Tilly recording minutes. And then we meet. We see the return of the Spang Boys, don't we? From Diamonds Are Forever, along with various other miscreant gangs across the West Coast.
Yeah.
Pussy Galore and the Cement Mixers.
I don't know about you guys, but Ian's had me on the floor several times throughout this book, quicker than Oddjob himself. In various states of laughter. So it's certainly may not have been thrilling, but it's certainly been entertaining in this book.
What entertained you about it so much, Andy? What put you on the floor?
I mean, whether it was at the beginning where the invoice of Bond saying, I'm going to get completely wrecked, and whatever young lady drags me to bed, and all this kind of stuff, some of the one-liners, the way he talks to Oddjob. Several times he had me on the floor, and it was when we are now in America. He's recruited Bond and Tilly, as I say, for this enterprise. He's somehow attracted via, again, his power to corrupt with his sheer wealth. He's managed to draw these different gangs together for what's going to be a big criminal enterprise, but they don't know what it is. He's going to get them around the board table and explain it. And then we meet our 3rd femme fatale in the film, but Bond sees on the minutes or the notes, Pussy Galore, and he literally says, "Well, who the hell is Pussy Galore?" So that was another moment that slayed me. And it turns out she's how can we put it? She's got her own all-female gang.
The Cement Mixers.
The Cement Mixers.
Brilliant.
They're like modern day Amazonians. Who have no interest in men. And that kind of feeds into Bond's inner voice of his personal theories about orientation, which are quite funny. and also this ties in with his relationship with Tilly Masterson, because as we know, Bond had a lovely time with Jill, traveling to New York, and then he's met Tilly. He's found out that Tilly is her sister, but from the off, he's found Tilly ever so slightly chilly, and he can't. He literally can't quite put his finger on it, and then when Pussy Galore herself finally walks in to this meeting of the gangs. Tilly's eyes light up. She goes all of a quiver, and Bond thinks he's sussed out what situation is here.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, Shay, all these little bizarre reveals, I did find, whether it's Ian's intention, I don't know, or whether Ian's having fun, I don't know. But certainly a diverse cast, and it certainly amused me,
And it's funny that you mentioned Tiffany Case earlier on, and Pussy Galore reminds me of Tiffany Case.
Yeah, well, she's
doesn't
like
suffer
an
fools gladly, can look after herself.
Yeah, I mean, do you think, guys, that because we found over these 6 books that really, I think the undisputed queen of the femme fatales has been Tiffany Case. Nobody quite matched her, and I think here Ian has possibly took Tiffany and divided her up. So different aspects of Tiffany Case's personality we'll see across the 3 femme fatales in this book. So Pussy Galore's probably the gangster side of Tiffany, the sassy gangster, yeah. The seductive side was Jill Masterson, and the sort of chilly side we got with Tilly. Am I barking up the wrong tree with that, or what?
I'm just worried that Ian is running out of inspiration for characters, because for me, she just seemed too much like Tiffany Case. Goldfinger seems very much like Drax. I am worried, and I don't know if we're going to get an 8th installment, because I'm thinking, is Ian struggling a bit here to come up with new characters?
Oh, well, he's back already from Jamaica, and an 8th one is all but done. But I'm given to understand that the next one is a little different, because I think it involves some short stories rather than a complete novel. Oh. But that's just speculation. But no, I see the point in terms of repetition and closeness of characters from previous books. But as a staunch defender of young Ian, I would say that it still works. It's still head and shoulders above anything that old Wheaters is writing at the moment. I mean, he's gone more for the occult anyway, but it's head and shoulders above his contemporaries. But yes, I'll accept that there is a degree of repetition, and I did find, although I thought the torture scene was good, with the buzzsaw that was going to damage his married life, or not that he is married, but his possibilities for married life forever. What I found bizarre was the way that the torture just stopped, and the next thing we know, he's waking up on a plane. And he's on the way to the States. Now, did I blink and miss something, or was it explained why Goldfinger didn't go through with the execution?
I think Goldfinger literally tells him, like Shane said, that I've realised you've got capabilities, and I've got this thing planned. It's going to be my master stroke, the greatest criminal enterprise of all time. And rather than kill you, I think that you're a useful guy. I can use you and the girl.
That's all quite tenuous, really. But he did offer himself up. And he offered the girl up while he was under torture to work for him. So okay, so now we're in the States, and we're in this. This board meeting with this raft of characters, and I mean, I did find this really quite cartoonesque. I mean, there's a character called Solo that brings an electric razor out during the meeting and starts shaving. I mean, it's I mean, maybe this Solo has a Napoleon complex. I don't know. But I mean, and there's a string of bizarre incidents like this. But I have to say, I did get very excited when Pussy came in the room. I thought, yes, this things are starting to look up a little, So I was pleased that she made her entrance. But then we discover that, she has this gang, the cement mixers, that are all cat burglars and all of this good stuff. So it was. We're in the land of the fanciful here. We're in the land of the fanciful.
But I think this was one of my favorite passages of the book, the dialogue between Goldfinger and the gangsters among themselves. I think, again, Ian's having a lot of fun. And I really felt like I was a fly on the wall, overhearing this conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I think, the way that they all react to Pussy Galore, clearly they respect her. They're probably a bit fearful of her. They respect that reputation. And that helps introduce her as actually, a really accomplished criminal with a past that they don't want to mess around with. So I really enjoyed that chapter, actually.
But then, in the middle of all of this, we discover what the plan is. To rob Fort Knox
using a weapon of mass destruction.
Yes,
which really,
it's quite ambitious, isn't
freaks Bond out when the nuclear warhead is revealed.
So one has to step back and say, how credible was this plan? For me, it was the least credible plan we've seen so far. I thought, this is little. I'm a staunch defender of the realm, but I did feel this is becoming a little fanciful.
Is it the equivalent of getting to the island in Doctor Who where it all went a little bit crazy?
It is, but I'm beginning to wonder, is Ian not writing a little bit for the screen when he comes up with stuff? It's just a thought. Just a thought. But, whether or not they'll ever make movies, who knows? But evidently Ian's, pursuing it very vigorously. And maybe this more fanciful approach that's what it's all about, for the movies. But in written form, I found it a stretch. The quality of his writing was there, that was maintained throughout. But I found this a little bit of a stretch.
What about the concept that Goldfinger's managed to get hold? I think it was from the Japanese. He's managed to get hold of a chemical that is going to basically. He's told Bond that it's going to sedate the whole of Fort Knox or the whole of that state, hasn't he, or something like that? But it turns out that it will actually. He's going to kill everybody, isn't
it? Yes. It's not the product that's advertised. Isn't it something from the Russians he's going to use? And he's going to kill 60,000 people.
Kill all of them, yeah.
There's a lot going on, and that's evidently the game plan. Of course, Bond takes the opportunity to try and send a message to Leiter, isn't it? I forget who does he address his note to?
Anybody. You get $5,000 if you take this to Pinkerton's or something like
Pinkerton's.
that. Yeah.
In Nassau Street, New York, which is actually in Lower Manhattan. So that's another gamble by Bond, right? Because he puts it under the bog seat, doesn't he? The note, hoping a cleaner will find it. And, that's quite interesting because after he does that, I think 4 or 5 people go for a slash. And he sat thinking, they're going to find the note. So that's thrilling, in fairness to Ian.
Because Oddjob's glued to Bond, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's been baiting Oddjob all the time, hasn't he? He's been calling him an ape. He's been saying, "I'm going to kill you just yet, Oddjob," and Oddjob can't wait to pull Bond's head off.
Snap me off. He's ordering his drink, his food, everything, and he's banging the door when he's in the. I'm sorry, Andy. Yeah. You won't even let him have a wee in peace.
I want a carton of Chesterfields and a bottle of bourbon and make it snappy. He's
Yeah.
like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
King size Chesterfields. King size Chesterfields too. Just not,
That's it. Yeah, get on with it.
Yeah, he's ordering.
Yeah.
He's ordering the man about. Yeah.
And they travel so they travel to Fort Knox, and when they get there,
By train.
everyone is lying down.
They go by train.
By train.
Yeah.
By train, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've got all the cement mixers dressed up as nurses, haven't they? To deal with this.
Yes. And Auric is
sickness.
dressed up as a doctor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little fetish there, peut-être. Yeah. Yeah. But they're all.
So the plot. Yeah. So they rock up to Fort Knox, and we find out that Leiter did get the note. Oh, good old Felix! How many times has he bailed out society, and certainly Bond, right? He's someone you want on your side.
Yeah. And when you think he gave him an arm and a leg for the job, he'd live and let die, and he's still up for it,
In uniform as well.
You've got to admire him. Yeah, and in uniform.
He's got his combat fatigues on.
His old fatigues. Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway, they stop. They abort the mission. But then instead of arresting, we had the terrible incidents, of course, while Bond is trying to get away. Of Tilly's death by bowler hat. Yeah, that was quite a shocker, actually, because I thought Tilly was going to come round and was going to be, the sort of femme fatale at the end of the day, but not to be.
She's mesmerised by a pussy galore, isn't she? And Bond's trying to get her away, and she's saying, "No, leave me alone. Pussy will
look after me."
Yeah.
And if she'd have listened to Bond, I think he actually uses the same term that he used about Vesper back in the day, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Silly,
female dog.
Yeah. So sadly, that was it. But we saw that lead-rimmed bowler hat used with lethal effect, didn't we?
Yeah, used in anger.
But did you sort of think what is going to happen? Because we found out that Bond's shoes, he said, Ian's given us the hint that said his shoes are heavier, and I thought, he's got the steel toe caps on again. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that. I thought it was that.
But it's special knives in the heels, isn't it?
It is, albeit they didn't say that his toe caps were heavy as well. But he has got the knives in the heels. Yeah.
I was thinking, how's he going to deal with this guy, this Korean odd job? Because he seems pretty. If it comes hand to hand, him against Bond, I don't really. But Bond wasn't too clever against Red Grant, was he?
No,
he was out of his depth with Red Grant, frankly.
Yeah.
And
then he finds himself hobbling around without a heel on because he's taken the knife out. Yeah. Again, it's it worked for me at the time I was reading it, but posthumously, does it stand up under interrogation? No. I found From Russia with Love a lot more thrilling because it was a lot more grounded, to be honest. There was more detail to there was more of a raison d'etre for the plot and so on and so forth. But anyway, that's the plan gets aborted. Tilly gets the chop, and then in all of this mess, Goldfinger gets away.
Yeah. with
together.
Bond as his hostage still, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And honestly, by now, he's realised Bond is an enemy, like say enemy action. Bond
Yeah.
is an enemy, and he's his prisoner now, isn't he, on that plane? And
Well, when they're going through immigration, Bond. I mean, Goldfinger's whole point is, that this guy is completely he's completely insane. He's not to be listened to, and so on and so forth. So they won't listen to Bond protest his innocence, and to protest that he's on Her Majesty's Secret Service. So yes, he gets sort of swept away by Goldfinger.
well, he gets suckered into having a vaccination, doesn't he? Which I thought was a little bit hard to swallow. That Bond would just let these guys stick a needle in him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there we go.
I mean, the interesting thing is, I think, and I haven't gone back and checked, this is the longest in terms of page length of all the books. But it was the one that held my attention the least. I mean, I am not a fan of this one. I didn't find it thrilling. I didn't find it convincing. There were bits here and there, I'm with you, Andy, where I laughed and giggled, but it just felt slow. There wasn't much suspense in it. Not Ian's finest effort. And not one I'd really return to.
Well, how would you rank the ones that have preceded this, including this? Which is your favourite? Which is your personal favourite thus far?
From Russia with Love.
Yes. Like what?
That's the gold standard for me.
Yes.
Pardon the pun.
Yes. Yeah. And what about you, Andy?
I think that was the most complete, wasn't it? That was like a masterpiece.
Yes.
But I've enjoyed them all for different reasons, really. Diamonds Are Forever didn't set, people's soul on fire. I enjoyed that, Yeah, I'd agree it's not the greatest or a great book, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But as we said before, Dr. No, it was just stark. It was like a side A and side B of an album, really. They were two different worlds. Once it went to the island, it went into Crazy Town.
Yeah.
And I think that as we get to the end here, albeit the thriller element was there, where it was like, well, what is going to happen? He's on the plane. Oddjob is to the left of him. As I just said, I don't fancy him one-on-one with Oddjob, no matter what he does.
Yeah.
How's he going to get out of it? And the fact that he uses a little bit of science with that aid, and lets basically barometric pressure do the work. But then again, we go into Crazy Town, don't we? That we go into super spy territory where he can survive a plane breaking up on the splashdown, and I just sort of think,
and then bang a lesbian. Andy, not just that, they splash down, they find the weather station, and he ends up bedding the lesbian Pussy Galore of the cement mixers, which was a little.
He turns her, doesn't he? He turns her with his magnetism.
Did that work for you, David?
I was quite enamored with the relationship between Bond and our good friend Pussy. I thought that was fine. I know where you're coming from when you say it's not your favorite, etc. I mean, I would say it's much more at the fanciful end of things, and I didn't dislike it, but it didn't work for me the way some of the others have. With From Russia with Love being the standout thus far. But I enjoyed very much Casino Royale at the time. I enjoyed Live and Let Die at the time. Diamonds Are Forever for me was a weak one. And Dr. No, I enjoyed it, but mostly I enjoyed it before they got on the island. You know, with this
Yeah.
one, again, I found the beginning good. I enjoyed the initial setup, but it then started to get really quite fanciful, and for me, that I find that a distraction, to be honest. I think it would be good to see what he does next. It would be good for him to go back to more grounded pieces.
More,
Do you think that Ian, in terms of with what he's done with Goldfinger and Goldfinger in comparison to other villains, do you think we're in 1959? Do you think a new decade's coming? There's a few beatniks around, this kind of thing, a bit of progression. Do you think that Ian is really trying to modernize as he's moving along? And with that, he's risking getting into more fanciful areas in his drive. Like we've got the new sports car, we've got the gadgetry. I mean, where else do we mention all these gay characters, lesbian characters? There's probably a large area of the populace that's never heard of anything like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Goldfinger himself is a very modern, here we are, 959, very modern villain, isn't he, compared to the Fu Manchu drawn Dr. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's going for world domination by modern means.
Yeah.
But we don't get much of a backstory about Goldfinger in the same way we did about Drax and some of the other villains. I felt that, wasn't he Goldfinger from Latvia originally?
Yeah,
we didn't get much about, and I think for me, Andy, where this book is lacking is not just the suspense, but not so much character development. It drops these people in, but there's and I'm always looking for a bit more backstory. Like I'd love to read the backstory of Pussy Galore. I think he could have added a bit more about some of her past escapades, for instance, and he could have had a couple of the gangsters talking about, or remember that caper they pulled off at such and such. I was looking for more character development.
Well, he did say.
He
did say some things about it. I mean, we learned that she comes from the South, and references made that she said the definition of a virgin in the South is somebody that can run faster than their brother.
From a sheep.
Oh yeah. I mean, so we do learn a certain amount from her past, but yeah, I accept completely. There could have been much more flesh on the bones. Yeah.
But still, a quick read, an enjoyable read.
Yeah.
The boy can definitely write, as we've said many times. I didn't feel it was time wasted. It just wasn't quite up to the scratch of his previous output for me. But we'll see what he comes up with next, right?
Yeah, quite right. I think that's a good selection.
Short stories. Why do you think he's made that move to short stories? Do you think he just is a bit bored? He wants to mix it up? Or does he just have so many ideas in his head that he doesn't have to put them into one novel? Why do you think he's going the short story route?
I don't know. I wonder if he's been writing, some supplementary material for magazines or something, and he has some material on hand that he can draw on. I have no idea. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he comes up with in terms of novellas, because they're not easy to do. And let's see.
No.
Let's see if you can manage it. But certainly, I think, like I said, a few minutes ago, vis-a-vis what's out there at the moment. From the likes of Hammond Innes and Alistair MacLean and all of these sort of characters. I think Bond is really leading the field. He's still up there leading the show.
In terms of sales, David, because you've been down the club mixing with these people from Cape. Where is Ian going with all this? Has it been a steady upward curve, or has it been plateauing, or has it been growing with each of these novels every year?
Evidently, the growth is quite phenomenal, and
Right.
And it's reasonably common knowledge that it's only Ian and Bond that are actually keeping Cape afloat,
Right.
and without them, they would be out of business. So I think Ian is in an exceptionally strong position with Jonathan Cape. And yeah, sales evidently are very, very good. I mean, the paperbacks come out, a couple of years after each hardback. So I think thus far there's only been I'm trying to think which is the one that's been released most recently in paperback.
Russia.
From Russia with Love, or maybe it was the one before that. What did we have before from Russia with Love?
Diamonds, was it?
Diamonds Are Forever. I think Diamonds Are Forever has just come out in paperback now. But yeah, I mean, evidently they're selling like hotcakes. So they're doing very, very well, both in hardback and in paperback.
And I imagine Ian every year he's doing these annually, sitting there in his place Goldeneye in Jamaica in front of that typewriter, trawling his imagination for all these stories.
Yes.
And like you say, he's keeping Cape alive. I mean, how much do they just swallow what he gives them, or do they sometimes come and say, I'm referring to you're saying these elements that are sometimes a little bit hard to swallow. Do they just take it, or do they say, well, what's going on with this, Ian? It's too far out, What's the story?
Do you know what the hardest thing to swallow about this book was, though, Andy? The one thing, and I've lost total respect for James Bond over this, is the fact that he openly says he dislikes tea, it tastes like mud, and he feels it's brought down the British Empire. I mean, who doesn't like tea?
But does he redeem that right
Shocker.
at the end, though, when he says, and give me a cup of tea or something like that?
Yeah.
He redeems it at the end, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, gentlemen, we're going to have to wrap this one up. It's been a pleasure talking about Goldfinger with you both. I hope we... when's the next the compendium of short stories out? Do we know, David?
Well, I think it'll be March next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got a lot to look forward to in the new decade. We've got a lot to look forward to in there.
Gone into the 60s. Beatnik Bond.
Bond, sorry.
Beatnik Bond, possibly.
Yes.
Because he's getting more conflicted as he moves along, isn't he? He's starting to think deeply about things. So
yes,
we do get a lot of his inner thoughts in this one. We do get a lot of his inner thoughts. I think Ian does share more of his thoughts on the world in this one. But
the question is how much of it is Bond and how much of it is Ian? I think we could get a fact paper between them.
Are you telling me that Ian has never fantasized about bedding a lesbian? This is all Ian. This is all Ian. Well, gentlemen, thanks again. I look forward to seeing you in 1960.
Yeah, I'll be there. Thank you very much, Shane. All the best. Cheers, Andy.
Thanks for listening to the Spybrary podcast. You don't have to wait for the next episode. Join the conversation happening now at facebook.com/Spybrary and on Twitter @Spybrary.